Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Jay versus Horror. Tonight, I'm going to talk about some of our favorite weird ass horror movies, and we're also going to give you a couple new reviews. Now, we're going to start out with the reviews, but guys, first off, please check the link below in the description. We need your help. We're trying to keep the lights on around here, trying to keep the internet on. We want to keep the shows going, we want to keep the group going. So give us a hand if you can. Donate a couple bucks. We appreciate it. Now, let's get started. And we're going to start with the reviews. Now, first off, the new movies that we've seen. And if you guys have been keeping track, we've watched a lot of movies. I've probably done 15 or 20 reviews in the last 2 weeks alone. But these two, both of them were actually good. So I'm kind of excited to talk about them. Now, the first movie we're going to talk about is called The Price We Pay. And it's got a couple actually known actors in it, Stephen Dorff and Emile Hirsch. And this is just such a simple, everyday setup for a horror movie. It's like Malevolence, that kind of setup. Okay, we got a couple criminals here who do something terrible. They're on the run. They take a hostage with them, and they show up at the wrong farmhouse, right? And from here, this movie is just like a whole lot of other movies thrown together. I mean, movies like Killers and Human Centipede, and just a ton of movies thrown together, but it works. It's actually pretty good here, too, and we even get an interesting killer. The only complaint I had about this movie was I wanted to know more about the killers. I felt like the killers were the least element of the movie because they spend the first half of it it kind of feels like dusk till dawn. These guys aren't brothers, but they're on the run together, and there are two brothers in the movie. And Emile Hirsch here, I think he plays a really great character. I mean, like, I've seen this guy in a few things. He was a kind of a big deal in the early 2000s. He was kind of an it kid. But it kind of faded away, and he went into doing indie movies and straight to DVD movies. And I've seen him in a couple really good ones, a Western with John Cusack a couple years ago. And this one was really good. He was really good. Like, he just absorbed the character. He didn't try to be bigger than the movie or anything like that. And he's playing a bad guy in this movie, and he does it very well. Basically, he's playing Richie Gecko in this movie, but he does it really well. And the movie, like I said, they have good bad guys in the movie, but they don't really explore that. And I wish they had done that more. But The Price We Pay with Stephen Dorff and Emile Hirsch, I'm going to have to give this movie, I'll go up to 6.5 out of 10 just because I'm really happy to see a good horror movie. Like the last 10, 11, 15 that I've watched, there's been a couple that were okay. This one was better than most of those. So I'm going to give it 6.5. That might even be a little bit, probably maybe a half a point higher than it needs to be, but I'm just happy. So we'll stay there with that one. So that was The Price We Pay. And the other one we watched was called Blood. Now, this one, I'm so stuck on this, guys, because I really like this movie, and it's a good movie. There's great production value to it. It looks like a real movie. It looks like a theatrical movie. There's stars in it. It's got everything going for it, but there's something here where I'm stuck, and I've been thinking about this ever since I saw the movie. Maybe you guys can help me out with this. This story feels like a story I've heard a bunch of times, even though I'm not sure I've ever heard it. Okay, that's where I'm at with this, because I've seen this story parodied in things like The Simpsons and South Park and stuff like. I've seen it parodied, but I cannot give you a reference to the story that is being parodied. So maybe this is the story that's being parodied, even though it's just being made now somehow. I've seen this story before. We've all seen this story before. The child is a fucking maniac, zombie slash vampire slash cannibal slash whatever the fuck that child is, and it's locked away, and the parent is trying to feed it because it doesn't want to give up on the child. We've seen that. Like, I've seen shows make fun of this idea like it's an established idea that they're making fun of. But I can't tell you the original movie or idea where that came from. So I'm stuck with that. If you guys know and I don't, tell me. But that's what this movie is about. It's about a woman who slowly realizes that her child needs blood to survive. And no, it's not a vampire movie. Not straight up a vampire movie. It's just this kid needs plasma to survive. But, of course, as soon as you start to watch a story like this, you know where it's going. You know that it's not going to be good. Of course, it's not going to be good. It's a horror movie, but you know it's not going to be good in other ways. Like this parent who is a actually good person is going to get led down a dark road that we don't really even want to see them go down. The whole time we're hoping that they won't. The whole time though, we're hoping that they'll realize that the best thing for the child is for the child to be gone. At some point, there are worse things than death. And that's reality. That's not even a movie, guys. There are worse things than death. And that's what we explore in this film, and we explore the part of parenthood that won't let you let go. So it's hard to hate this woman, but at the same time, she does some very despicable things in the movie. Check it out. It's Michelle Monaghan. And look, I like Michelle Monaghan. She's kind of like a big star who's not a big star. She's been in a lot of movies. They always put her name on anything she's in, but she's really not a big star. She was married to Tom Brady before that supermodel girl that divorced him was. That's another side note about Michelle Monaghan. But anyway, she has super talented kids, probably like X-Men. But anyway, yeah. So those were the two movies that we watched. And I'm going to give Blood, guys. I'm going to give Blood, I'm going to give it 6.5 out of 10. I think it fights for that. It's definitely worth 6.5 out of 10. And some people might like it more. I had to hold it back a little bit because I just feel like I've seen the story before, even though I cannot exactly pinpoint where. Okay. So now we're going to talk about something fun. We mentioned this in the group today. 25,000 people in the group, 25,000 horror fans. And we said, name a weird-ass horror film you love, no matter how ridiculous it is. And I put up a picture, of course, of Sleepwalkers. And I'm going to talk about that one for a minute because this came out in 92. And I was a huge Stephen King fan even in 92. Even when I was 12 years old, I was a huge Stephen King fan. And this one, I knew that something was up with this movie from the beginning because it came out without me ever knowing about it. It came out like it just hit the theater. And I was like, what? There's a Stephen King movie at the theater and nobody ever told me about it? Well, come to find out, it's because Stephen King didn't write. I mean, he wrote it as a movie, but there's no Sleepwalkers novel. So that's why I didn't recognize it. And then when I went and saw the movie, I won't lie to you guys. I hated this movie. I hated it. I saw it in, 92, 93, something like that. And I hated it for the next 10 or 15 years of my life. And it wasn't until I could find a place inside myself to give up that rage and go back and reevaluate that I actually enjoyed it. Like it's corny as hell. And one of the things about this movie that nobody ever talks about, there's like 50 million cameos in this movie. Like every person who ever directed a great horror film in their life is in this movie somewhere. And it's just fun. And that girl, the lead actress, I remember having a little crush on her when I was young. That was my favorite thing about it when I was young. But yeah. And it's got cats in it. Who doesn't love cats? Everybody loves cats, especially in this sense. But let's see what everybody else said. We asked everybody, so let's see what their answers were. Oh, I got to go back to there's a lot of comments. There's a lot, over like 2,000 people on this post. So we're just going to go through the best ones. Okay, that sounds fair. And guys, I'm going to remind you again, if you want to help us out, hit the link below in the description. Hit that link and donate a couple bucks and help us out. Help us keep the lights on around here. And Ashes Zacarias says she loves Sleepwalkers. John Leonard says his favorite weird-ass horror movie is Howling 2, and I love that movie too. And it's so weird because I hate The Howling. There's 3 movies that came out that year about werewolves, and they should all 3 be recognized. The Howling, American Werewolf in London, and another one called Wolfen that most of you didn't know about. And I would place The Howling at 3 on my list. It would definitely go American Werewolf. You can't beat American Werewolf in London. It's like probably the best werewolf movie ever, outside of Curse of the Wolfman. But yeah, and then you have I would put Wolfen at number 2, and I would put Howling at number. That's just me. I know, it's sacrilege for horror fans, but I don't care. That's the way I feel about it. Wolfen is a very trippy movie. Go watch it if you've never seen it. Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf. I love this one, and I remember it from when I was a kid because it had all these horror legends in it, like these icons. And then at the end, there's this really sleazy, trashy scene, and they're all like sitting around drinking cognac and shit. And I just remember, like, even as a kid, thinking like these two things don't mix, but this is cool, and I'll probably never see it again. So, yeah, Howling 2, definitely check that out. Return of the Living Dead 2, I love Return of the Living Dead 2. It's not my favorite Return of the Living Dead movie. Return of the Living Dead 3 is the best one of all of them, right? We all know that. Because they just really made the first 3, and then they made a bunch of like rip-off movies after that. But what's funny is I went to a panel on Return of the Living Dead like back in 2015. And it was so funny because like there was a whole vibe at this convention because George Romero was, I didn't know any of this until I went there, but George Romero was at this convention, and the cast of Return of the Living Dead was there. And I didn't know that, like, there's this whole issue where George Romero got ripped off for millions and millions of dollars from Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. And then when they did Return of the Living Dead, what they did was they, like, fakely led everyone on to believe that it was associated with the Romero Dead series. And so, like, until I knew George Romero, until he died, he hated these people. He hated them. Up until his old age, until he fucking died, he fucking hated these people. And they were even telling stories on his panel about how they saw him in the elevator and he spit on them. And it's, I mean, like, I understand it now. I didn't understand it then because I was just learning about it, but I understand it now. He was totally ripped off by, tons of studios and basically everyone who's made a zombie movie since him. And he didn't get a dime out of that. He had to make money later on through other projects. People say, why did he make this? Why did he make? Because he had to. Because the iconic idea that he created was not, given proper respect towards him. And yes, I love Return of the Living Dead. I love Return of the Living Dead 2 even more. And I love Return of the Living Dead 3 even more. Return of the Living Dead 3, I got a crush on that chick. Always had a crush on Melinda Clark. And that movie is just like, I love movies about crazy chicks. That's the best. Number 2. That's number 2. Misery's number 1. Anyway, yes, Return of the Living Dead 2, better than number 1 in my opinion. Detention, this is a movie that I've also seen. So underrated. Off the Wall, mix of Breakfast Club, Back to the Future, and Scream. Great movie. If you guys never seen it, go check out Detention. And Kevin Tyler says, Branham says, The Hand is absolutely priceless in my opinion. Yes, and a lot of people even here, I think, would attribute this to being like an inspiration maybe for Evil Dead later on. Adim Carvalho says Troll. A lot of people said Troll actually on this post. And I'm surprised they didn't say Troll 2 because Troll 2 seems to be the one that gets the backbeat love around here, right? Troll 2 is like supposed to be the worst horror movie ever made. So there's this subculture of people who absolutely love it. Trust me, it's not the worst horror film ever made. I've seen some this year that would beat that one. James Size Love, we love James. He's one of our top contributors, and he says Vampire Journalist. And James, you got me on this one. I have seen the cover of this movie since the 90s. I've seen it around like video stores and streaming sites. I've never watched this movie, James. In the 43 years I've been alive, and probably I would guesstimate the 30 years this movie's been out, I have avoided it, James. But because you said to watch it, I want you to know I'm going to go watch this movie. Vampire Journalist. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to watch it. I never wanted to watch it because I would go down the list, man, and like even like Kiss of the Vampire, and this would come after that. Like, Subspecies, this would come after that. And I never got to, in 43 years, I never got to this movie. So I'm promising you, James, and you might be the only one, man, that really came up with one that I haven't seen. I'm going to watch this one. Tony Kanapka. Tony's one of our friends. He's donated here before. Thank you, Tony. Like I said, guys, before, if you want to help us out, donate, hit the link below. Tony helped us out. We love Tony. Man, Tony's been our friend for years. And that's the thing about this community. Some of you guys have known me for like a decade now, or maybe even longer. And it's been a great time knowing all you guys and hearing all your answers about all these questions. Tony says, Santa Jaws, Night of the Flesh Eaters, Abnormal Attraction. Tony, I know the guy who made Abnormal Attraction, Michael Levy. that is a crazy ass movie. Wolf Cop, The Toxic Avenger, Septic Man, The Greasy Strangler. I can't get down with Greasy Strangler. Everybody loves Greasy Strangler, and I'm like, I don't get that movie. I don't get it. To me, it's like weird beyond weird, like where it's just trying to be weird to see what happens, and I can't really get into that one. I know a lot of people who love it. Seed of Chucky, says Kendra Chamika, and Jason X. I don't know if those were Seed of Chucky and Jason X are pretty normal, but maybe they're odd if you're just like the casual fan. And several people said they just love the movie that I'm talking about, Sleepwalkers. Eric Dole said Day of the Dead, which I don't really think he put up the picture for it, and he said it's kind of corny, but the effects are great. I love Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead is my favorite of those first three Dead movies. A lot of you guys are going to say, here's a real thing that will tell you things about horror people. Are you a Day fan or a Dawn fan, man? Are you a Day fan or a Dawn fan? That's what I want to know. And I'm going to tell you why, because I got my own reasons why. Harrison Foster says, Tokyo Gore Police. Of course, those are great movies. And then once you watch those movies, you get into all the other Japanese crazy splatter movies. And Roger Domian says, Zombies. I remember that one from 10 years ago, I would say. And Robert Hall says Frankenstein's Army. I suggested Frankenstein's Army on our first movie club weeks. I don't think that one's that obscure or weird, or it's pretty weird, but I don't know. I said Society. I thought that was one that really had to be mentioned in this. If you've never seen Society, you have to see that. It's terrible. It's also very great. Greg Asian Chopian says in the line, and Lisa said, how? How is Society great? Because at the end, there's a giant butt monster. All these people have sex and infuse into one thing, and they become a giant butt monster that talks. That's not exactly the truth, but it's similar to the truth. And John Phillips says, Deathbed, The Death That Eats People. I love this movie. Patton Oswalt, who does, everybody knows Patton Oswalt, favorite stand-up. He's a buddy of mine. He did a set one time about how this movie changed his life. Deathbed changed his life. He said that he felt like he couldn't write anything that was worth a shit. And then one night he was laying on the bed in his shitty hotel room, and a movie came on TV called Deathbed, The Bed That Eats People. And he realized instantly that if they could write a movie called Deathbed, the Bed That Eats People, that he could write anything. And it re-energized his entire career. True story. Check it out if you don't believe me. I don't know if it's on the internet. He told me that. So, but I'm assuming it's on the internet. And Lisa Lear, she loves House as a comedy, which is weird to me because I never got House as a comedy when I was a kid, because it was like House 2 was the comedy for me, and House 1 was more serious. But now that I watch it when I'm older, I totally get the vibe, especially with the music and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a comedy. Jacques Leroux says Rumpelstiltskin, and I remember that movie, dude. I remember that movie from the 90s, early 90s. Yeah, that's a creepy movie. Terror Vision, of course, Evil Ed, Rubber, the serial killer tire movie. Everybody loves that one. Several people said Terror Vision. Several people said Rubber. Street Trash, Dead Alive. Several people said Dead Alive. Troll was mentioned again. Demon Wind, which Joe Bob just showed recently, and I watched again. Chopping Mall, Maximum Overdrive, Possession, Human Centipede, and Pin. A lot of people just said Brain Dead. There's a lot of Brain Dead. Mariana Hagenboom said Sharknado. Now, the one thing I remember about the Sharknado movies, because I didn't like them and I only watched maybe 2.5 of them, was when I interviewed Caroline Williams, I went to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 30th anniversary party, and she was there, and I talked to her, and when I talked to her, all I remember is that she was like, ask me about Sharknado. And I was like, nobody cares. I don't want to just say, I would rather talk about a movie you made 30 years ago than Sharknado 4. But I didn't say that because I respect her, and she's a lovely woman. Slumber Party Massacre 2, that's not a bad movie. I mean, Slumber Party Massacre 2, at least it's original. It's its own thing. I don't really remember anything else in the world ever being like Slumber Party Massacre 2. And Danielle Dubois says Death Spa, and Jennifer Hammer says How to Make a Monster. Yeah, great movies, guys. And if I'm right on How to Make a Monster, I think that's the one where it's like a video game creation. Maybe I'm wrong, Jennifer. If I'm wrong, you can remind me. But I think I saw that movie years and years ago on a pay site on cable, and yeah, it wasn't bad. I remember like actually liking it. I think it's one of those movies that occasionally when it comes on, I'm like, hey, yeah, that's How to Make a Monster. But yeah, guys, great entries. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for the answers, and we have fun. And guys, once again, if you can help, drop us a couple dollars down below. Hit that link, and I don't know. We're gonna do something big. We're down to probably our last couple shows here. Realistically, we're probably down to our last couple shows here, and I'm thinking like I'm gonna do something big for the last show. And there's a few classic movies out there that I have never seen, and I know it's gonna surprise some people. But I've actually avoided these movies my entire I want to say career catalog, whatever, of watching these movies, and I want to watch them, and I want to do it live and have like my reactions live and everything else because I've had several people recommend these movies to me over the years, and I just didn't watch them because they just didn't strike a chord with me. But I'm going to watch one of them, and I want to do a live reaction thing. Now, one of the films I'm talking about right now, looking at, is Watership Down, and I'm gonna find two more that are like iconic that I haven't seen, and I'm gonna put them up in Jay versus Horror on Facebook for a vote, and I'm gonna let the people vote, and whatever they decide I should watch, I'm gonna watch that, and I'm gonna do it live and do a live reaction to it, just so people can kind of see how my process works while I watch these movies. Guys, that's all we got for tonight. We love you, and we will talk to you, of course, as always, the next time we got something worth talking about. Maybe, if you're lucky.